Hi everyone, thank you for joining me. I'm back with another card from Spellbinders, the Painter's Garden collection. This card features the beautiful pansy. Well, actually, a handful of pansies. With all the color possibilities, I couldn't make just one. Before we get started, I'm including a diagram that labels the names of the petals that make up the pansy. I am a gardener, but I'm certainly not a botanical expert. But using the names of the petals will make it much easier for me to describe how to put this pansy together with no confusion. The die in the top left-hand corner consists of two die cuts, the anterior and the lateral petals. The lateral petals are the two petals that are joined together. Cut this one time. It is clearly labeled for your reference right on the die. On the bottom right-hand corner is the posterior petal. There are two of these, so you cut it twice, and again it's referenced right on the die. The last die will cut two leaves and the calyx. Even though the die says to cut this 2 times, I actually cut it multiple times so that I would have lots of foliage. You will only use one calyx though. The calyx is the die cut that looks like a little flower. This will not be seen on the finished pansy. It will, however, hold all of the petals together. Okay, now we can get started. All of my pansies will be Copic colored. Depending on the color combination, I'll be using 2 to 3 markers, a dark tone, a light tone, and sometimes a mid-tone. This tutorial, I'll be focusing on just one of the pansies. I've created 2 blue pansies for my card. It is being colored with B39 and 04. Right now I'm coloring the 2 posterior petals. Those are colored solidly with my darkest marker, in this case the B39. Because the flowers are so dimensional, they're colored both on the front and the back. For the anterior petal, I'll start off with the B39 and then finish it off with B04. You may have noticed that when I'm coloring the petals that I'll take my marker and I'll go right around the perimeter. Die cuts have a right side and a wrong side. The right side will have a little bit of a raised edge. Because there's so much dimension, this will ensure that there are no white edges. The lateral petals are colored both front and back with the B04. As you can see, these pansies are easy to color, no expertise required. Many of the color varieties of pansies have the pretty painted face. These dark markings will go on both the lateral and anterior petals. Starting at the base of each of the petals, I apply the darkest marker, in this case the B39, in flicking motions. If you are interested in the other color combinations that I've used, they'll be listed on my blog. Both sides of the calyx are going to be colored in with YG67. All of the leaves are colored simply with YG67 at the base and flicking it up towards the top of the leaf, and then finishing off with YG23, a nice fresh green. To even out the tones of the blend, I apply a second coat. And like the petals, the back of the leaves are colored. In this case, so much ink had seeped through, there wasn't much more to add. To shape the flowers, I'll be working with Susan's Garden Ultimate Toolkit. This kit comes with 6 different attachments that can be slipped onto either end of the handle. The collar is pulled down, the attachment with its textured side is lined up with a little ball on the inside of the collar, and then the collar is just allowed to snap back and it is locked into position. To add texture to all of the petals, I'll be working with the smallest loop tool on the foam molding mat. Starting at one side of the petal and working across to the other side, the loop tool is placed at the top of the petal and pulled down to the base. I do this a couple of times. It creates soft undulations on the petal. The petal is flipped to the back side and I do it just at the top to soften up that edge. Back on the right side, I add in some more, but this time I don't go to the outside edge. I just start about 1/3 of the way down and take it to the base. This process is repeated for the 3 single petals and then on either side of the lateral petals die cut. Switching over to the fine detail tweezers, on the anterior petal, I'm just going to bend up those 2 little pieces right at the base that are called lateral hairs. And then back to the small loop tool, and I go ahead and add the texture like I did with the rest of the petals. On the other side of the tool, I have the smallest ball attachment. On the back of the anterior petal, I press this right at the base. Petal is flipped over to the right side and then I press right above that on that side. The little ridge that I'm pointing out is where the glue will be applied to attach it. Now that all the texture has been applied, the final shaping can be completed using the reverse tweezers. So this is the thing, if you're not familiar with working with reverse tweezers, when you open them up and position them, you need to slide your fingers down. If you don't, you'll just open them up again. The center of the petals are placed into the reverse tweezers and then they're pressed upwards, giving them a nice rounded appearance. With the petals right side up, the reverse tweezers are then used to catch the edges of the petals and curl them down. The center of the lateral petals is pressed down with the small ball tool, as is the calyx. Now the exciting part, putting this pansy together. Starting with one of the posterior petals, glue is applied, a fairly good dollop of it right at the base of the petal. I use my fine detail tweezers just to hold that calyx in place, and then it is pressed up against one of the sepals. The calyx is made up of 5 sepals that look like flower petals. Now for the second posterior petal. After glue is added, it is overlapped onto the posterior petal that is already in position, and this one is adhered to the next sepal. Adhesive is added to the center of the lateral petals die cut, and it is inserted into the center of the calyx. Finally, the anterior petal. Adhesive is applied right to the ridge that was previously pointed out, and then it is inserted on top of that little bridging between the 2 lateral petals. After every petal was attached, I used the tweezers to hold it in position for a few seconds. At the base of the anterior petal, I could have colored it yellow, but I chose to use Nuvo Crystal Drops Dandelion Yellow in the center of the pansies. On with the leaves. I'll start off with the smallest ball tool on the leaf mat and draw in the main vein. The leaf, which is right side up, is then folded down. I'm using a Faber-Castell Gelato, which is essentially a crayon, just to run down that main vein, just to highlight it. Next, I'm going to add in the little side veins on the right side of the leaf. At the base of the leaf, the reverse tweezers are used to catch about a quarter of it, and then it is bent upwards. Leaving the leaf in the tweezers, I place it face down onto the foam molding mat and make circular motions around the edge of the leaf using the medium-sized ball tool. To put this card together, I'm working on a black A2 size card base. Black cardstock was die cut from the largest die from the Essential Ovals die set, and then embossed with a new 3D embossing folder called Bamboo Trellis. The oval die was also used to cut black sheet foam. The added dimension helps the oval stand out from the black card base. And then it's just a matter of arranging the flowers on the oval. As each pansy is added into the arrangement, I also add in leaves. The sentiment for this card has been glimmer foiled on black cardstock using elegant occasion sentiments. The sentiment and black sheet foam were cut with the coordinating die so that it could be stacked. As the arrangement is completed with the final leaves, I'm tucking in that sentiment now and again just to make sure that everything's going to pull together. After the sentiment has been positioned on the card, then I finish up with the final leaves. I'm not sure exactly the number of leaves that I used, but I know that I did die cut quite a few. And I finished up by adding some little pops of shine with gold foil half pearls. And that completes this card featuring a couple of new products from Spellbinders, the Painter's Garden, Pansy, and the Bamboo Trellis 3D embossing folder. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I appreciate your visit.